What if I told you that God is so transcendent, so all-knowing, so eternal, that He hid all of history in His own name ahead of time? So we're going to start this off with something a little bit more technical or hidden from the original language, something that got lost in translation along the way. Not very much in the Bible has been lost in translation, but there are a few things about the original language that make certain things little hidden Easter eggs. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe so you don't miss any future content. So I think at some point we have all looked into the meaning of our own name. Maybe we think that it's going to give us some kind of glimpse into our destiny or what the future might hold for us. I'll never forget the first time that I went to Cape May, New Jersey, and off the coast you can still see a sunken ship sticking out of the ocean. Now, when I was a child, I just thought this was placed there on purpose or some kind of obscure decoration or photo op. But as I got a bit older, I actually learned that it's a prototype of a ship that from a former generation, for whatever reason, sank off the coast. And its name was the Uss Atlantis. Now, I've never heard a more fitting name for a ship that was going to sink. Now, obviously, you didn't click on this video to hear about the names of ships. So, what does the scripture say about the name of God? Maybe it will give us insight as to who He is or His character or what He will do. Now, we read in Exodus 3 that Moses meets God in the form of a burning bush, and God calls Himself, I am who I am. In the original Hebrew, this is the word or the name Yahweh, spelled 𝗄𝗲𝘁. And in the original Hebrew, it also suggests the verb to be. Now, ESV Study Bible has some interesting footnotes on this passage, so I'll share that. For verse 14, it says, I am who I am. In response to Moses' question, what is your name? God reveals His name to be Yahweh, corresponding to the 4 Hebrew consonants 𝗄𝗲𝘁. The 3 occurrences of I am in verse 14 all represents the form of Hebrew verb that means to be, and in each case are related to the divine name Yahweh, Lord. The divine name Yahweh has suggested to scholars a range of likely nuances and meanings. 1, that God is self-existent and therefore not dependent on anything else for His own existence. 2, that God is the creator and sustainer of all life that exists. Or 3, that God is immutable in His being and character, and thus is not in the process of becoming something different from what He already is. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. And 4, that God is eternal in His existence. While each of these points to the true God, the main focus of this passage is the Lord's promise to be with Moses and His people. The word translated I am can also be understood and translated as I will be. Given the context of Exodus 3:12, I will be with you, the name of Yahweh, the Lord, is also a clear reminder of God's promise to His people and of His help for them to fulfill their calling. In each of these cases, the personal name of God, as revealed to Moses, expresses something essential about the attributes and character of God. Now, this is probably the most popular biblical story, let alone name of God, in the Bible. But a good rule of thumb I've found when studying scripture is to go back to the first time that something was mentioned and find out what it says there or what it means there. So, when was the first time God was mentioned in the Bible? The obvious answer there is Genesis 1:1, the very first verse of the Bible where we see God creating space, time, and matter as we know it. Verse 1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So what? Now stick with me on this because we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole that I think that you'll find extremely interesting when we come out of the other side of that, but in order to do that, we really need to learn a little bit of Hebrew. I'm not a Hebrew scholar. I'm just getting into Hebrew now. My pronunciation is terrible, so just bear with me. Now Genesis 1:1 in the original Hebrew says, Bereshit bara Elohim et, that word et is important, ha-samayim vayed ha-aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But what's interesting is that word et. Now that word et is not a translatable word from the Hebrew into the English. There's no direct word or meaning or translation that goes there. It's made up of the letters in Hebrew, aleph and tav, which is the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. God calls himself this again in Revelation 1:8 when he calls himself the Alpha and Omega. It's meant to signify the beginning and the end. Okay, now we're almost to the other side. What's interesting in Hebrew is what happens when we use the original Hebrew. It's called Paleo-Hebrew. It would have been the Hebrew that was written down kind of like hieroglyphics that would have been used pre-Babylonian exile, so pre-600 BC. Suddenly we see this Aleph Tav become this Aleph Tav. And we go from seeing ambiguous symbols into something that looks a whole heck of a lot like an ox on a cross. So now we see that the first time God identifies himself as beginning and end in Scripture, he's actually leaving us an awesome Easter egg that tells us the story that is about to unfold in Scripture is all about a sacrifice on a cross. So, in the very first use of God's name, in the very first verse of the Bible, we not only see space, time, and matter all created on a macro level, but we see a good God who was always going to enter his creation to save it through the sacrificed Messiah, Jesus.